I don't need my glasses on, do I?
Well, you might need them later.
Well, I'll leave them right there.
Okay. All right. So, Mom.
Yes, Jen.
Introduce yourself. Tell the folks in Ireland and around the world who you are.
Well, I'm Anne Marie Butler, and when I was a young mother, I decided I needed to go back to school and get educated and learn more about what it was to be Irish.
Well, wait a minute. You weren't that young a mother. You were in your 50s.
Well, I was in my 40s, wasn't I?
Well, I think you were in your 50s. I was in college.
I guess. I don't know. I don't...
Oh, that's fine.
Well, somewhere in there, does it say any dates on there? But when I was at
yeah, you were
Boston College?
You graduated Boston College in 1994 with your
94.
master's degree.
Oh, okay. So it was in the 90s that I was there.
Yeah. So you were a seasoned gal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had discovered that they had this special master's degree course in Irish studies. And it's something that I cared about a lot. I had spent a lot of time in Ireland already.
Well, what was it that particularly prompted your interest in Ireland?
Well, when I was doing research as to who was my birth mother, because I was adopted as an infant, I discovered that she had been born in Ireland. And that made me want to know what that was all about. I mean, I knew about Irish people, but so I took trips over to Ireland. And Boston College had a master's degree program in Irish studies, and I thought that would be very helpful, and I have time now because my kids are all grown up, and
Yeah.
So it was a lot of, you had to study the Irish language, which is one of the most difficult languages in the world to learn.
Sure.
But I got to have several trips over to Ireland as part of my course. And I discovered Una as a writer. She is Elizabeth Connor. She wrote some short stories, and I had read a couple of them, and I was really interested in her work. And so that's when I began my big look into her, and she became my master's degree project.
Now, my favorite, I'd like, so you had done, Boston College had this exchange with the Abbey Theater.
Yes.
Or they'd have students go over, and I actually did it
right
1 year, and then are you looking at my hair and deciding it needs fixing?
No.
Okay. Because you're my mother. And I had done the program, and you did the program the year before me.
Right.
And one of the things you did was you knew that Una Troy had written some plays, right?
Yes.
And then you were looking for them at the Abbey, and they didn't have them there. They only had the programs. So when you got back to Boston, or Brookline technically, what did you do?
Well, I wrote letters
to who, though? Who did you write a letter to?
Well, I tracked down her family.
Whose family?
Una's.
Yeah, Una's Troy's family. Yeah. And
I got a letter back finally. And the interesting thing is that my letter arrived when she was still living, but then she died soon afterward.
Right, she was on her deathbed.
Yeah.
I think it was the last day she was alive that she received your letter.
It was close to the last day, yeah.
And what did she say to her daughter?
At last, somebody cares.
At last, somebody cares.
Yes.
And she said that she wanted you to be in charge of all her papers. And she had, and I'll put this up because you have pictures here that you put in with your thesis of her cabinet here of all her papers.
Right.
And I'll put up a little, I'll send an image of this, but she had all of her papers.
Yes, she did.
In this little cupboard under the stairs. And there's a great picture of you in front of her house here too.
Right.
And you became very close with her daughter.
Yes, I did.
What was her daughter's name? Wait, what was her daughter's name? No, I forget now.
I don't remember.
She was very nice.
She was very nice.
But we'll look that up later. We'll look that up later. But but you guys became friends.
We did.
Which is great. And
this is quite a while ago, so.
That's all right. I don't remember either, see? And then, so you guys became friends, and then you went and took all of her papers, and what did you do with the papers?
They were at the Boston College Irish Studies Library.
No, where are they? They're in Ireland. Then you took them to the National Archives in Ireland.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
What I brought to the library at Boston College was everything else that I had about her.
All her books and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But her papers.
But her papers went to the National Library in Ireland.
And who sorted them and put them and categorized them and all that?
Me.
You. That's right.
What's in the papers?
What's in the paper? Yeah, what's in the papers?
Well,
That's the granddaughter.
a lot of what's in the papers are the working sheets of her novels.
Okay.
So she would rewrite, or and in those years, of course, they didn't have computers. Everything had to be typewritten.
Right.
And so she would change things, and then she'd retype it, and all of that. But it was amazing how much she had written.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, she was really prolific.
She not only wrote the novels, but she wrote plays as well.
Yeah. And those you found because she still had the plays. You
Yes,
finally
she
got
did.
the play. And you have had them produced. We had Apple a Day was done here.
Yeah.
There was a reading done here, and then there was the one in London you went to. The
Yeah.
production. And then there was just the production of in Cork a couple of years ago that you went to, and you did a little introduction.
Right.
Was that Apple a Day? I don't remember which one that was. Apple a Day. I could have
Because I put things up on the computer,
right.
on the listing about her and all of her history. So people, if they're interested in her, they'll look her up and they'll say, "Oh, she did this and she did that and that," and really,
Yeah.
So I haven't had any communication in a while now, but still.
Well, they've got now. I mean,
there's more, there's more stuff that's available in the libraries in Ireland and all that.
Yeah, because of you, they have the archive that
Right.
scholars. So there's more and more written about her.
Yeah.
And her books some of them are available on the Internet Archive and things like that. So, so one of the things that you discovered in all of your work when you were doing all of the looking everything up is that there had been a film.
She didn't say no.
That was made of one of her novels.
Yes.
Which is We Are Seven. She
Yep.
didn't say no is a much more provocative title.
It is.
Everyone in theory has just watched the film when they're watching this interview. So and so they know a little bit about the plot. But can you talk about? It was of course banned in Ireland for it, which was and I missed because why? Because
because that didn't happen in Ireland ever. No, they were too.
That's right.
They were too Catholic and wonderful.
That's right. Well, it makes me think of the story of Maud Gonne when Sean O'Casey's Plough in the Stars premiered, and there's a prostitute in the pub in that play, and Maud Gonne stands up the minute there's a prostitute in the play and says, "There are no whores in Ireland," and there's all upset and storms off and starts a riot. There were always riots at the Abbey Theatre. And as the great Tomas McAnna, who was our teacher at the Abbey program, said, if she had just gone outside and looked around the corner from the Abbey, she would have said that there were prostitutes and whores in Ireland. But similarly, Ireland wanted to pretend that there were no out-of-wedlock births.
Right. There were no sins in Ireland.
No sins in Ireland.
And everything was labeled sin,
Right, that's right.
In those years.
And tell us, and also, I mean, the interesting thing, of course, is that in Ireland, if you did get pregnant out of wedlock, what tended to happen to you?
Well, they put you in
the laundries.
Yeah, and you didn't get to keep your baby.
Yeah.
And and even see it. They wouldn't show her the baby after it was born.
Right.
It was awful.
And they would and the girls would have to, or the women would have to stay there,
in the laundries, yeah,
for the rest of their lives.
Until that got changed.
Right. And this was, and of course there was
Well, Boston wasn't much better than that anyway in those years.
True. Although the women didn't have to, if you got pregnant, you just would go off to stay with the nuns and have the baby and then go home, right? They didn't make you stay at the convent.
Well, no, they couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was that difference. Tell us. So you found the film. So you knew that there was a film, and then you looked for like years to find a copy of the film, and you found one, and it was at, I think, a little movie theater in England. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah. I have to look up in my
We'd have to
paper
look it up
what
in
I
the-
wrote about.
so-
Yeah.
But I believe, and then you you got it to the Irish Film Institute.
Yes.
And then they did all
invited me over to show it.
That's right. You went over to show it, and it was the first time it had ever been shown in Ireland, right? That was because you had found the copy and brought it over, and because it had been banned,
Right.
and they couldn't even film it in Ireland.
Exactly.
Like, it took place in Ireland, but they had to film it in England because it was so scandalous.
Yeah.
So it was the
But
first.
it isn't really that it was scandalous. It was that it was so honest.
Yeah, yeah. And it's making light of it. I mean, which is sort of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's based, right? It was based on a court case that Una's father
Was a
oversaw,
judge.
right?
Yeah.
Which was a similar case, but of course that wasn't as like, I don't know that the result was as lighthearted as
Right.
the movie.
Were there any like big names in the movie, or was it more unheard of?
Well, I mean, Hurley, he was sort of well known. I mean, there were all these kind of, there were, as you can see from the cast here
Yeah.
on the thing. I mean, there were these sort of the Irish actors who were sort of part of
Right.
English Irish, you know, Betty McDowell and stuff. But they weren't any. It wasn't like big names.
Well,
like,
they weren't big stars.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a little movie. I did forget watching it again. I'd forgotten it's in color. It's in Technicolor,
It is, yes.
which is kind of fun. Which I'd forgotten it would be. Yeah, I mean, I think that people probably should understand that when they watch this delightful little movie tonight, that they wouldn't have gotten to do that
Mm-hmm.
if it weren't for you
Right.
and all that you did.
And the other thing that I thought was very important is that nobody knew her as an author here in this country. Really.
Right. Yeah. Well, they knew her. Although they knew her here better than they knew her in Ireland, or they didn't anymore. Wasn't she sort of popular here?
She was sort of popular, but never
Not like.
big popular, no.
Well, I think you would find her books in like libraries in South Boston
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and also in Germany.
That's true.
She's big in Germany, but yeah, she wasn't as well known. And when people would talk about Irish authors, who would they talk? They would talk
The
about
men.
The men. That's right. And you really want to make sure that the women were acknowledged too,
Mm-hmm.
which is why you focused on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was cool.
Well, it made me feel better too, that at least she was getting out there into,
Yeah.
somewhat publicly.
Yeah, and especially after, I mean, you and her, on her deathbed, she said you should be, right? You should be in charge of that. Someone remembers. Is that what she said?
Yeah.
And so, and now people do.
Not millions of people though. I mean, it's.
It will be millions, Mom.
Well,
After they see this video, millions. After this interview,
well, she's a really good writer.
yeah, she's pretty
Wrote
fun.
some wonderful novels and of course the play. And
The plays are really fun.
Yeah.
They're really weird, and I'm going to work on the plays. All right, so I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say about Una?
Not really. Although I really enjoyed meeting her.
Well, you didn't meet her. You met her daughter.
Well, I met her daughter.
Her family. Your friends.
I met her family.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Sorry, Mom.
No.
But it's like you've met her. I feel like you
I
have met
feel
her.
like I met her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her family was so excited that someone was caring finally about her work.
And they still are. Her grandchildren came to see the screening at the Film Institute
Mm-hmm.
the first time.
Yeah.
And they'll probably see it this time too. Yeah, and you're still in touch with them all, and
Mm-hmm.
pretty
I'm
impressive.
not
Mom.
totally in touch, but
You just got a Christmas card from Asta.
yes, I did.
That's pretty in touch.
That is in touch,
Okay.
and that's wonderful.
And you send them Christmas cards,
I do.
so that's nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Mom, for shedding some light on this.
Well, I think her books are really worth reading too. They're very well written.
Yeah.
And they have to do with what women's lives were like, but it's not like history. It's like reality.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, yeah.
So.
All right. Get out there and read the books, people. There's
Yeah.
some of them are on Internet Archive. They're hard to find. We'll get them up online.
Well, Boston College has a number of her books.
Come to Boston. They're all in Ireland.
I know. But I also think, well, the library in Dublin has,
They might have some.
yeah.
And then you can also we'll We'll look into getting some ebooks done.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we'll talk
but
about.
I think that, you know, the main library in Dublin,
all right,
because I worked with them too, you know.
I'll make sure that they had the books. Yeah.
Well, they invited me to talk about the books and all that.
Okay.
That was a long time ago, so it's not totally in my memory.
Yeah, I understand. All right. Thank you, Mom. That was excellent. And, and I'm sure Una thanks you from wherever she is. And there she is. Hi, Una.
There she is, yeah.
And thanks all for listening. Ann Butler, my mom.